Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time, I saw Allied. This is a 2016 war romantic thriller, directed by Robert Zemeckis, and it stars Brad Pitt, Marion Cotillard, Jared Harris, Simon McBurney, and Lizzie Kaplan. In the film, in 1942, an intelligence officer in North Africa encounters a female French resistance fighter on a deadly mission behind enemy lines. When they reunite in London, their relationship is tested by the pressures of war. So, what did I think of Allied? Well, I enjoyed it, but I can definitely see a lot of the issues people have with it, especially with the chemistry and other certain things having to do with historical accuracy. But let me get to the cast first. Brad Pitt plays Max Vatan. Um, Brad Pitt's kind of just Brad Pitting. He's. I've seen people say that this is kind of like if they made a serious sequel to Inglourious Bastards. The character he plays here really isn't the same as the one in Inglourious Bastards, but yeah, he's fine in this for the most part. He's pretty decent. Um, he does have some bits where he could have, I don't know, emoted a bit more, but overall he's pretty fine. Marion Cotillard plays Marianne Buzejo. Uh, she's the other officer that he falls in love with. Or wait, French resistance fighter. Yeah. Um, she does a decent job as well. I don't mind Marion Cotillard. I last saw her in um Inception. Thought she did a fine job on there. Jared Harris plays Frank Heslop, basically Vatan's superior. I like Jared Harris as an actor. I think he does a decent enough job here. Simon McBurney plays the SOE official. I don't think he's ever given a name. Um, he's in the film. He's in like one or two scenes, I think. He's there, very kind of over the top. Um, and Lizzie Kaplan plays Bridget Vatad. This is the most unneeded character in the entire movie. Um, but I don't hate Lizzie Kaplan, but I don't think she was right casting for this. And I'll get to why her character doesn't make sense given the time period. But this film, you have a very easy concept here. You have basically something that'll be half war movie, half romantic thriller. So you've got like bits in the beginning and the end that are like setting up to war action or espionage action and stuff like that. And then you have the other parts of the movie, which are kind of a romance movie and kind of a thriller on like, is she not, all of these things. By the way, I do have to talk spoilers on this because I do have to talk about how they do certain things. Um, so yeah, spoiler review. It was in the title. Not my fault. You can't read. I'm joking. But the whole movie has this kind of like, is she not this um German spy sent to fuck with the Americans and all that? And excuse me. And I do think that made for an interesting enough mystery. Again, there are issues that keep the mystery from fully like taking off and becoming something very like super like thought provoking, which you could have had something very thought provoking here. I think part of the issue is that it's Robert Zemeckis. Now, I like Robert Zemeckis for the most part. I like the three Back to the Future movies. I liked Castaway. Forrest Gump, I'm fine with. Contact, I remember finding pretty fucking boring. Um, I never saw Beowulf. I might actually watch Beowulf. Um, Polar Express might be my favorite movie of his. N- Not just due to nostalgia, I think it's just legitimately a very well done animated film. And especially at the time it came out, the animation was stellar. I still think it's pretty watchable nowadays, the animation. The animation never turns me off on it nowadays. Pretty much every Christmas we watch it. Oh, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I forgot he directed that. I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's a great director, but I think you kind of needed a more indie director to do this type of thing. Even though you'd have to do like a very period thing, you could have it in more or less one or a few locations that you could doll up to make look like the 40s and have some like miniature shots or something. Because you didn't really need this like epic war tone to do the story well. You could have had like you didn't need all of these elaborate hotel rooms or whatever, or these elaborate ballrooms and everything. It's partially because Hollywood movies are just so showy, and Robert Zemeckis, I think a big part of his filmmaking is, oh, I'm gonna push the boundaries with certain things, and for the most part, I think he does that well with the like pushes the boundaries of like CGI and everything. But here's the thing: in the film, there's a lot of CGI. How much of it comes off well and doesn't look like, um, CGI? I think half the time it works and half the time it doesn't. Because you have a lot of shots where there's like stuff going on in the sky, like planes getting shot down and everything. And from a distance, it looks pretty good. And then when the stuff gets closer, it doesn't look as good. And that seems to happen quite often in films like this. Like, and this film had a pretty high budget. Like, not like 300 million, but like around 100-ish million, I think. Actually, I can check. I wrote it down in my review. 85 to 113 million. So, yeah, not a small budget. And again, half of it works, half of it doesn't fully work. I think there are quite a few shots where you could have used miniatures and they would have looked a lot better. But big Hollywood movie nowadays isn't going to do that. But yeah, one of my biggest issues is the chemistry between our leads. Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard are two good actors. I don't think they're fantastic or anything. I know she won an Academy Award for La Vie en Rose. I have not seen La Vie en Rose yet, but I might at some point. But they're capable enough actors. And I think this film makes the sin in that many romance movies do in having them fall for each other way too quick. Because they fall for each other like right before, it's either right before or right after the main starting conflict. And I think that was a bit of a mistake, because if I bought more into the relationship, I think I would feel a lot more for what happens in the end. And I think it would have hit a lot harder. Like, it's still an ending that makes sense and everything, but in a movie like this, it's really a movie where the twist at the end isn't really a twist. It's more so, I wish there was a bit more of like a whodunit type angle to this, where you don't know for sure that spoilers, she turns out to be the spy. And all this time he's been like, no, there's no way she's the spy. I wish there was more of a, guessing game to it. Like, oh, this character's doing this. Maybe it's his sister. And I'll talk about the main character's sister in a second. But it's I was a bit disappointed with the thriller angle of the film and the mystery of it all because there really aren't any other candidates that could possibly be the spy other than like the woman that's like babysitting their kid, but I was like, she's barely in the movie, so that wouldn't really make much sense. And again, like if they had if they had just a little bit better chemistry, where I bought it a bit more that they're, you know, that they were falling for each other, then I would 100% be more on board with this film. I gave it a 7 because overall, it's a very well made film, first of all. I'm still going to get to more cons, but it's an overall very well made film. It looks pretty nice, even if some of the shots don't look the greatest. Um, uh, well, it's one of those films where there are quite a few flat shots, but then there are also shots that are they're pretty good looking. Like there are some shots where the characters will just walk into a room and it'll just be a wide shot for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, okay, can we cut this? Can we speed it along? Um, for the most part, the movie doesn't feel overlong. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes. It doesn't really feel that overlong. If any part feels a little bit long, it's the beginning, because I don't feel a lot of the build up to the relationship, because it's mostly them like pretending to be in a relationship because they're spies. And yeah, I just wish it was I wish it was done a bit better. Again, the relationship being built up. Um, the music really, I guess that's a con for me. The music is so unspecial, and it's Alan Silvestri, like a well-renowned composer. And I was just like, really? Like, this feels like, I feel like I've heard this score before. It's like so generic. It's not horribly like composed or anything. It's very well composed, but it's just kind of boring. And I have to go on to this. Lizzie Kaplan's character. I'm guessing Lizzie Kaplan is a lesbian in real life because the only two roles I've seen her in are this and Mean Girls, where in that she plays a character that's bi. Her character's only reason for existing in this is to be like, oh, I'm in a lesbian relationship. Next scene you see her in, her fucking girlfriend is playing cello or some shit. And then the last scene you see her in is her at a party kissing the other woman. This did not need to be here, and also given that this is set in England in 1942, it doesn't make a lot of sense because gay people were not really, like, gay people existed for sure, but this 100% feels like them trying to pander to gay people, for sure, as someone who is gay. It's like I hate shit like this. I didn't even know this was in this, but as soon as it got to the drinking scene where we find out about Max, is that his name? Yeah, Max's sister being a lesbian, I was like, okay, what? Why is this here? It doesn't make much sense at all. It feels thrown in just to have a lesbian character, which I'm a bit disappointed by that. But the film's use of CGI blood. The CGI blood near the end of the film looked a lot better, I'm guessing because it was more in the dark. But in the opening shootout, or not opening shootout, in the first shootout in the consulate or whatever, where they're killing the ambassador or whatever, played by August Deal, who was also in Inglourious Basterds, along with Brad Pitt. The CGI blood, like, at times looks fine. Like, there's one guy that gets shot in the head and blood splats on the wall behind him, and it looks pretty good. But then August Deal's character gets shot in the head, and at first it looks okay, but then when he falls to the ground, there's like it's spurting out, and I swear to God, I could see like dead pixels or something. It looked really bad. Like you didn't need the blood squirting out of his head. It did not need to be there. It's such an unneeded thing. You could have cut the shot. You could have cut out that element of it. Just have the blood splatter. You don't need the extra shit. It just makes it look more fake. And that is something I do think the film needed a little bit more of action, since this is billed as a war romance thriller, and there's kind of a distinct lack of action. I keep saying distinct. There's kind of a lack of action. You have that shootout and then the stuff at the end where he's trying to see if Marianne is the spy and all that. And one thing I will say worked for the most part was the ending, even though I didn't really feel a lot of a connection between our main characters. I was still like, okay, it makes sense for the film to end like this. It makes sense. It worked. I wasn't crying though. If this film had made me cry, it would be higher for sure. But I didn't really feel much. Again, the actors are not the problem. I think the way the romance is written, where it's like they have to fabricate everything, kind of devalues what possible actual, like, you know, excuse me, chemistry they could have had. And it kind of, I think the fact that you needed, I think you needed different actors partially. Like Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard do fine, but you need like really damn good actors to pull this off. And I just never have thought either of them were amazing. Like I like them and things, but I've never thought that they were like super powerful actors. But what's the other thing that I wanted to talk about? Um uh yeah, this film has a bit of it has a bit of an issue with, okay, not an issue, but this definitely has a bit of a feminist angle to it, where the main character is does kind of some dumb things in the early bit of the film, and she has to keep telling him like things like a real man would offer a cigarette to a woman before lighting his own, or a real man would do all this, and I was a little bit annoyed by it. It didn't really continue that much, but it still was a bit of a weird thing. But yeah, overall, I don't mind the film. I enjoyed it to an extent, but I do wish that it could have been more than just like all right for me. And yeah, I hope somebody could do this type of plot a bit better sometime. But yeah, um, that was my review of Allied. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door, out.